It's time for AggroChat, the official podcast of the Tales of the Aggronaut blog and stalwart gaming community, where we talk about stuff and things, and the stuff about the things, and sometimes gaming. I'm Belghast, and let's start the show. Hey folks, it's that time again. Time for another episode of AggroChat. This is episode 493. Tonight I'm joined by Ammo.
Hello.
Ashgar.
Rage Against the Dying of the Light.
Grace.
Hi.
Kodra.
We have all been alive for 1 billion seconds.
Tam.
Hello.
And Thalen.
Hi.
How long is a billion seconds?
A billion seconds is about 30 years, a little more than 30 years.
Okay. Yeah.
This is part of one half of my new favorite factoid, which is we've all been alive. If you're over 30, you've been alive for a billion seconds.
Okay.
Human civilization has not existed for 1 trillion seconds.
That is wild.
Hey,
I mean, it makes sense, but like, there's a lot of difference between a billion and a trillion.
What are
There
you talking
sure
about?
is.
It's only like 2 letters.
Like, it's just a couple extra zeros. How much difference could that make?
Orders of magnitude. So
It's fun.
I want to start off and apologize to our listeners for not having the last 2 weeks worth of episodes because COVID kicked my ass.
Oh,
no.
And I are the one who record the thing. So yeah,
Like,
it
we could theoretically do this without Bell, but
We have
Yeah.
had
It'd be a lot
Kodra
more
record a
difficult.
few
We've done
times.
yeah, like I mean, and that's fine. Like, that would have been
When it's
fine. but
planned,
also-
it's fine.
Yeah. So like, I tried to give y'all at least some heads up on the last 2 weeks, but I never got around to posting anything about last week. So
Whoops.
whoopsie. Anyway, we have an inordinate amount of topics, and as a result, we will not get through all of them. But
Challenge accepted.
I mean, no.
no.
Challenge
So-
unaccepted.
time to speed run.
Speed dating for topics. So this week, Last Epoch did its awkwardly named reset of what is effectively Cycle
functionally
2.
Season 2.
Yeah, like they need to get better at naming these things.
They
Like,
need to
We
let
get better at
go.
naming.
Yes. They really need to let go of this convention and just accept that nobody wants cycles named after their specific
minor
patches.
patch numbers.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh no.
Yeah.
No,
like,
yes,
I thought it
no.
was the cycle versus season thing, but no.
No.
that's-
No.
No.
They're
This
calling
is
it like Cycle
1.7.1
1.1 or something.
It's like 1.7.1
No.
or whatever, or something
Oh
like
my
that.
God.
1.1.7.
Bad.
There you go. Okay.
Yeah, like, not good.
That's
First off, for a very important reason, this isn't good. I don't feel that a cycle should be considered a patch release. This, at the very minimum, defines a minor release from true
Semantic versioning.
semantic versioning.
Yeah, so like, it's all kinds of crazy. Like, Diablo uses even numbered seasons. Path of Exile does do patch numbers, but they name their leagues very clear, distinct names.
I was
This
gonna say
does
there is a
have
patch number, but nobody knows what it is, ever.
I know what it is.
Fine, sure. I could not
But-
tell you if this is, 33?
24? Or was the last one 24?
No, it's like, wait, of the Path of Exile?
Yeah.
This is 25. This is 3.25.
3.25.
Okay.
See, they are indicating that it is a minor release. Correct.
Yeah. Anyway, like, it's a thing, and also it's weird because they reset the cycle in the middle of a cycle, but also at the same time added a bunch of features.
It feels like a new cycle. I'm treating it like a new cycle. And aside from the weirdness of the name and the fact that they're still calling it half of the existing cycle, it's
Right.
great.
Yeah, it's been amazing. Like,
Well, What was the reason that they felt that they needed to do something like this, though?
Because
Cough, cough.
economy exploits.
So have we had any economy
We did talk about
exploits
these
yet?
on the podcast.
I don't know of any economy exploits yet. They did release a patch about an hour ago that toned down the occurrence of one of the major league mechanics.
I was
Imperial
sad.
things.
Is it the lizards?
Yes. So
Okay.
so
Aw.
basically,
Many lizards.
yeah.
But there's
We're
still a
so-
lot of lizards.
I'm still seeing a lot of lizards, but I'm not seeing them like multiple stacking up on the same screen.
Yeah, I did
Yeah.
have. I think
Doesn't
the
sound like
most
too many lizards.
the most I had was like 5 lizards in a pack, and I was like, "That's a lot of lizards."
I've
had
had as many
8.
as like 8 to 12 on a map. It's nonsense. Like the most I ever see at once is like 5 to 8, but like a lot of times there are other lizards on that map other than that cluster.
So for the folks who aren't playing and don't know what's the deal with lizards?
Okay, so lizards
Why do they matter?
are
They look
these
goblins.
little pack animals that have a pack on them, and you are knocking the pack off the lizard and unburdening them.
Oh,
And
they're
then they
squid
run
burglars.
away. So
Yeah.
so basically they're loot goblins, but
The loot goblins are like the Scrit in GW2 or any number of things like that.
right. So basically like you knock the pack off and then they run away safely. So you're not killing lizards.
I appreciate this because
not
they're
harming themselves.
adorable.
They are.
Sometimes when they run away, they will rear up on their hind legs and run on 2 legs instead of 4. Sometimes they'll
Yes.
scurry on 4. They'll dig to get away from you. They're so
Very funny.
cute.
Lizards running on their hind legs is
They,
the best.
they will when they pause, they will kind of pant like they're out of breath.
They giggle at you when they run away at the first time.
Yeah,
At
it's
least I think that's
amazing.
what that is.
Yeah, it's they're,
Mhm.
they're so good. So basically, like, there's a bunch of different versions. There's one that drops idols. There's one that drops rare gear. One that drops uniques. One that drops exalted items, and then the saddest one that drops set items. Because that's the one you never want to see.
Maybe someday.
That poor
items
lizard.
will be good.
Oh.
Nobody
see-
loves him.
Do you know what
Okay.
I've done? I have hidden all set items.
Oh.
Oh wow.
Come on, there's
Yeah.
like
There are-
2 set items that are good, but they drop off of the same boss.
Yeah, I was just thinking that. It's like, wait, there's set items that I think are good. Oh, right.
I already have those set items. I never need another pair.
You sure aren't getting them from a lizard.
I mean,
Yes.
the thing is like set items really need to be reworked. Like I threw out a bunch of ideas today, and they were all reasonable options. Like give set items Weaver's Will. That would immediately make set items better.
Yeah, set items are definitely there's a philosophy around itemization in this kind of game. And like your like regular tiered rarity items are what you get stats from, and your uniques are what you get like interesting effects from, sometimes build defining
Abilities
effects
kind
from.
of things. Yeah.
And that works fine, but if you have a set item, the trade-offs that you're making, because you like to put together a set, you are making trade-offs in both stat flexibility and stat customization and stat like the amount of stats.
Right. So you're basically like, if you use a set item, you are giving up on the ability to potentially have double the stat hits as that single stat item.
Right. And so like it's possible to make that work. You just need to have the set bonuses look broken. Like you should look at a set bonus and be like, this
I mean-
probably needs to be patched. It looks hideously overpowered.
You did
Yeah,
like
way we
Diablo
got
3
here.
set bonuses, where it's like plus 4,000%, damage to something or other.
But the
Yeah.
reason why we don't have those is because they specifically did not want the Diablo 3 situation where basically you go out and find your set and
You're
then
in a
you're
set
locked
or you're
in.
in nothing. Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
That's how
So-
we got
But-
here. And that's also part of why I think Path of Exile doesn't have sets at all.
But wait a second. Then, like, the thing is that they still, you aren't locked in because in this game, they've come up with the way of having like, hey, you get your starter version of this item, but then there's the chase version of that item.
Yes, and they didn't do that with sets.
And that's the problem.
I feel like that. I mean, there's a bunch of things that they could do. So if they made set items drop around the 15 to 30 level, and they're essentially starter gear, that would feel great. Like, you could run around in it, but like most set items have like a piece or so that can't be equipped until like 50, 60, and then by then you're getting real gear.
Yeah, I don't hate the idea of putting Weaver's Will on them.
Like, that would at least make it interesting.
Right. It prevents people from being able to really specifically chase the thing that they want, but at least it gives it some kind of bonus stats.
Yeah,
and you're not giving up quite as much just to use a set.
One of the things that's really hard with this game is the bases are really good and really powerful. And like, there's a lot of bases that you just absolutely want the abilities that come on that base. So like, you're not just giving up the 4 stats that you could have had, you're giving up like the implicits that are on the base.
I mean, yes, they could also put set items on better bases in some cases.
Yeah.
That's the other thing that I think would be really cool, is if you had another dungeon kind of like Temporal Sanctum, but it allowed you to take the stats from one item and put it on a different base.
I feel like they will at some point play around with that cycle.
Yeah. So like, the other big thing that they added is stash priority system. And it is amazing, but it is also kind of janky at the same time. Like, it's causing some weird behavior. Like, buying a stash tab takes forever now.
I couldn't figure out how to use it.
And sorting a stash tab that has priorities on it takes forever.
Also, like, the priority system is weird in that if you have like priority for uniques, so say you have a tab that says I'm going to store all my uniques in it, and that fill, it will start shoving your uniques into whatever tab happens to have space, even if it has no priority set on it. So that's an odd behavior, but like, I think like it's really powerful, this system. So I am very happy that it exists. I'm sure over time they will work the bugs out in it. And it's potentially the best stash tab priority system in ARPGs right now. But like, there's a lot of things that are a little bit weird to set up.
And I think it's still missing a little bit of customizability. Like, we know that we can, use the loot filter to zero in on some really specific things. And the stash tabs aren't quite there.
I would love a stash tab filter for my experimentals.
Yes, that kind of thing. Exactly.
Yeah, that's one of the glaring problems. There's also a really hard, like, I figured it out, but it is very difficult to differentiate between your uniques and your Weaver's Will items.
My stash tab situation would probably make everyone here sad. I organize my stash tabs the way I have my chat organized.
Not at all.
Just everything all right there.
Yeah, so I tend to create stash tabs for type. So like, I'll have a unique, a keys, an idols, exalted items. I usually have a uniques, like a series of unique stash tabs, and also a series of LP uniques stash tabs.
If I could have a button that would just send the contents of my inventory into my stash the way transfer materials works, and it just filled in whatever spaces it could find, I would use it all the time.
You just dump it wholesale into your bank.
Yep. And if I need something, I'd go like, I don't know, looking for it.
I mean, the search functionality is pretty decent.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, if you've got decent search functionality, then that's viable.
The amount of loot this half cycle thing, whatever we're calling it, is also kind of ridiculous. Because one of the other things they did was just like sort of turn all the dials up on your XP and your faction gain and a bunch of other things. And I have probably the strictest loot filter I've ever run in this game.
Okay, so I'm not just hallucinating ridiculously more loot.
Nope.
Yeah, it's just an overwhelming amount of loot. Like I have it locked down to the point where no weapons other than one-handed swords are dropping. Like that's the only slot that I could potentially get an upgrade in. So I'm only unhiding that one weapon type. And also I'm only caring about like, I think 40 some affixes in total.
There's so many crafting materials between the loot lizards and Nemesis and the other thing that they are doing, the undead event, that I'm high grading on on the affixes. Like I'm only showing things to disenchant that have like the rarest, a lot of like the class specific affixes and things, because I have plenty of everything else and I've just barely finished normal monoliths.
I can't get through a single monolith without having to stop and dump crafting materials. Like because basically like as much loot as the loot lizards are generating is also how much loot the undead packs are generating. That's the other thing that they added, and those don't show up until you hit monoliths. But basically, rare mobs in there are treated like the rare boss encounters in Diablo 3, where they drop a bunch of loot for a pack, and they drop so many affix shards. And you'll get like 2 or 3 or 4 packs of undead together, and then there's just this giant loot. And I'm having to toggle on and off my loot filter to get it to redraw items on the screen just to find them. Like, it is Path of Exile levels of nonsense right now, and I'm here for it. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's been so much fun, barring the fact that I can't even see where things dropped on my screen because there's so much of it.
I think I've decided we're going to call this cycle 2.5.
2.5. Okay.
That's like the most sane thing I can think of.
Yeah.
Cycle 2.5.
I wonder if there is somebody with my job on their end that's like, let's run a test to see if we should dramatically increase XP and loot drops.
I mean, we definitely, Belle and I were running together earlier, and one of the things we were talking about is how bad it is going to feel when this cycle ends and everything gets dialed back down, because this is really fun.
Yeah, well, I mean, and I suspect that they're not that I have done this specifically professionally, but like, hey, maybe the worry that people will burn through everything and leave isn't as dramatic as we thought.
Also,
maybe that's healthy.
That's kind of a healthy thing to have going on.
Yeah, honestly, if you want me to stick with a game like this, like I need to have downtime between cycles. Like I need to be able to reach a point where I can be like, okay, I'm done for now, and step away for a while. Yeah. And then by the time the next cycle comes around, I'm excited again.
Yeah, and I mean, like, so another piece of this, other than the whole they ruined the economy with exploits thing as to why this cycle is happening, or reset is happening, is they basically came out and said, we are not going to have another release until 2025.
Oh.
Because basically they realized there's not a window to do a release that doesn't have things that are already massively competing for the ARPG player time, because they realize all of us play all the different games. Like the hardcore ARPG player plays a little of this game, plays a little of the next game that comes out, plays a little bit of the next thing that comes out, And also, like, in a couple weeks, we have the release of the Diablo 4 expansion. And then in November is Path of Exile 2. And also,
beta, yeah.
then shortly after that will be the next Path of Exile League, probably in December. So January, February is probably the next free area that they could like realistically carve out time where they're not competing with someone else on these things.
I mean, I've learned I should skip Path of Exile December League, so that's a thing at least.
And they don't need you to be logging in constantly.
Mm-hmm.
Right. They're not
Like-
creating like a lot of things for us to buy in the first place.
Honestly, I'm sitting on a bunch of store currency because there's nothing I want to buy.
Yeah. Like that.
Like,
That
I
is
don't
a
even know
thing
where
that
I
they
got
should
the store
probably
currency
devote some
from.
resources to, is to create more cosmetics, because I will happily get them.
I mean, I really like some of the ones that they have. They just don't have done. I bought the gigantic set that came with this cycle because, yes, please, everything deep ones and anglerfish.
Yeah. I saw that and was like, I know people who are all in on that. I am
man,
not that person, and they don't have that thing for me, but somebody's really into that.
And I'm
And
running
I will
around in the
absolutely buy it
fallen.
when they have the one for me.
Yeah, I'm running around in the Fallen Knight, Void Knight kind of looking set at the moment with 2 Void axes. And like I'm very happy with it, but also like there's just not a lot there. So I will
I had
say-
not seen the called Deep Portal until just now. What?
it's kind of amazing.
It's so good.
So one of the things that was interesting is when the game launched on Thursday with this cycle, they got out of instances errors for the first time since,
Since
the
launch.
1.0 release. Yeah, so like there were a lot of players coming back.
That makes me really happy because they got a really big boost due to, partially at least, the mishaps of others.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that those people liked it enough to come back.
Yes.
Yeah, like almost everyone says it is a great game, it's just missing content. Like it doesn't have as much content as some of the other options. So like there's
you do run out of
probably-
things to do slightly before you do in, say, Path
Right.
of Exile.
there's an expiration date, and like it's a really great week type game, and like it's okay to have that experience and welcome them back the next time.
Yeah.
So
I mean, things I can talk about because they're public knowledge. But it's really interesting to me looking at, if you cobble together players in games over time, you basically have 3 kinds of curves. You've got most games have a giant spike that lasts anywhere from like 2 to 6 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And it drops off a cliff because people have finished the game, and that's that game's life cycle. And then you've got MMOs, which have a much smaller spike at the start, usually get a bit of a bump like 3 to 6 months after they launch. But they have this long tail, but they're always losing players, just more slowly. It's just a slow curve.
Yeah.
And if you look at Path of Exile or Diablo 4, it's like a sine wave.
yep.
But the thing that gets me about it is that sine wave gets wider every cycle, which is there are more. Path of Exile has higher peak player counts now than they did 5 years ago.
Right.
That's unheard of.
I mean,
That's
and
just
part of
not-
it's just the sheer amount of stuff that is in that game.
But also,
But also, they pick up players, and then those players keep coming back.
They make, and it's, I don't know, it's a thing it's something that I'm definitely thinking about a lot, especially with stuff like with Last Epoch, is like I have noticed I keep chat on in Last Epoch because I don't know, I'm too
Sure.
lazy to turn it off / it amuses me slightly. If you don't have chat on or you don't read chat, there are a lot more new players right now than there were at the start of last cycle.
I could absolutely believe this.
And I think it's because every time there's a new cycle, it's the perfect time to start playing the game.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. That's the thing that I love the most about the seasonal model is, like, sure, I play most of the Path of Exile seasons, right? I mean, leagues. But I know if I want to, I could just skip one. And when it
You
comes
missed
around the next time,
Absolutely nothing. That may be cosmetics.
right, the next time it comes around, I can hop right back in. And
Yeah.
and it was no cost to me. In fact,
Yeah.
there's probably stuff that got added that's new to me.
People might tell you that you did miss the coolest mechanic ever called Ultimatum, and then you'll
But they're
find
lying.
out 10 years later
It's
that they were
awful.
lying to you.
Yeah, it's awful.
It was all like a long con.
I want Metamorph back.
I don't want Metamorph back.
I loved Metamorph.
I'd rather have
it
Metamorph
was so
than
much
Ultimatum.
fun.
I liked Metamorph.
Like, I also play a super tanky build, and Metamorph was great for that.
Well, Metamorph at least has a cool aesthetic. Like, you're building a
I knew that.
Frankenstein's monster. It's great. Ultimatum's just, eh.
And it was good for, like, juicing your maps, because, like, those rogue Metamorphs showing up in your maps were just fun, and they were just, like, a bunch of loot. Ultimatum, like, I'm really glad people are out there doing it so that I can buy catalysts off them. I don't ever want to use it. But yeah, like, I mean, I've noticed that as well, Tam, that, like, over time, the base of players for these ARPG games just keeps getting wider and wider.
Yeah.
Well,
And
if you are playing a game and trying to get your friends in, there is a perfect time to be like, we're going to start all together at 0 and we'll play together.
you know,
Like, there's something to be said for being able to, like, to jump in and get that the game is brand new experience. Because that's effectively what the beginning of a season, cycle, whatever, is in a lot of ways.
yeah.
It's not really
Well-
brand new, and like learned experience can be a
Oh,
huge
yeah.
factor.
Sure.
No,
But-
totally, but it still
But
feels
it
brand
feels
new.
like it.
Yeah.
Like,
You
I
know,
always
in a
thought...
way that other
as
games don't.
behind. It's not like yeah, your friends are going to be more familiar with the game than you, but you don't have to play through 90 levels of the critically acclaimed
Yes, I get it.
in order to play with your friends.
Like, to be fair, that was always kind of the best thing about WoW expansions, is they offered a time where you could come back and kind of be on equal footing with everyone again.
Oh man, I never felt like that was
Yeah, I was about to say, I don't
No.
know what you're talking about.
Like, to be fair, like, I used the first expansion as a way to change roles because I was no longer basically bought into a gearing scheme that was impossible to get for anyone else. Like, tank gear was hard
So-
to get.
I
So,
mean-
well, wait, Belle. Did you do this having already ulted up your own character? Like,
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
You took a already expensive investment that you weren't really optimizing and decided to optimize that one instead.
Yeah.
That is
yeah.
different than like a new player
Starting
could come
fresh.
in. Yeah.
And even if
I started
you
fresh
boost,
during Burning Crusade.
Yeah, I mean, I remember. And like, you're sort of like, hey, glad you're here. See you when you catch up.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, MMO expansion is a great time to change mains to an already existing alt character.
Yeah.
It
true.
doesn't
Yeah.
it doesn't give you any benefit in starting from scratch.
No,
If
and
anything,
even
it's
if you
probably
boost,
worse.
it's you're still coming in, and now you're at the same level that everybody is starting at, but you were lost.
You
don't know the
understand shorthand
story.
that everyone is saying
Right.
about how these things work.
Yeah. And I mean, there could be some of that in ARPGs, but these games are all so similar. Once you know the language of one, you're pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know the other game that has that weird, continually widening sine wave that blows my mind? Warframe.
Warframe feels like an ARPG.
Warframe is
to
basically
me.
an
does.
RPG.
It does in a lot of ways, yeah.
But it's interesting because it's persistent.
Yeah.
Yes, Warframe is a
It
persistent game.
is, but it's only like
But Warframe encourages you to start new things constantly.
right.
Yes.
There's a limit to how deep you're required to go, and like you can go infinitely deep in that game, but like it does not take very long to get a single frame up and running.
Not at all, actually, to get a single frame up to the very low max level of 20.
Right, exactly. So like it is
Quite fast.
So the opportunity cost of Warframe is pretty reasonable.
There's also, like, they've added a bunch of new stuff that I have not seen, because it's been a very long time since I've played that game seriously.
Yes.
I always thought that Destiny kind of lost the point with their model because they kept
Well, it's clear that's what they're going for.
it's what they were going for, but they did it wrong. They did it ass backwards because they kept moving up the number. So you just kept getting more and more mudflated behind. So like if you checked out for a season and you were at 1500 level when you last played and now it's 2500, you have this stupid grind to get caught up to the baseline of what everyone else is starting. So it was very MMO-ish, I guess.
One of the worst experiences that I've had in games was we had done some like Destiny 2 raiding when it first came out.
Yep.
And I had
Uh-huh.
really good gear. And so I came back at one point and was like, I want to see the new story stuff. They added new story stuff.
So bad.
And I was like, okay, cool. And it was like, hey, do you want to play the new story stuff? I was like, yeah, I want to play the new story stuff. I came back to play the new story stuff. I'm here to play the new story stuff. 2-hit, dead.
Right. You
I was
just
like,
get your ass handed to you.
I was like,
And what's
what?
even worse though about it is that is the default method. Like if you bought the expansion, you don't even get to a character like once you've grabbed your character, you can't even go to town. You're just loaded straight into the ass handing mission.
Yeah. I went straight. Everything in the game took me straight into a mission, and I was like, this is great. This is super strict. This sucks. Like,
Yeah.
how do I do anything? And it was
Regardless of how good your weapon was, you now have a pea shooter, and everything kills you in like 2 hits.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the worst part is, even if you wanted to, like, okay, I want to just pause and go do something familiar for a minute and try to grind up my light, half of the stuff that's familiar to you probably got removed.
Yup.
Yeah, this was even before that. But it was like, well, first it wouldn't let me out of the mission.
Right.
I had to like grind my face against this mission until I finished the like intro that you're supposed to breeze through, but was two-shotting me. And then I could go and do like a patrol somewhere. And let me tell you, I am not Bell. If you tell me I need to
love
do
patrol missions, but no one else does.
Like if you tell me that I need to do a patrol or equivalent in Destiny, what I'm going to do is literally anything else with my time. I just no patience for.
I love open world screwing around. Like I spend 90% of my time in Guild Wars 2, open world screwing around.
Yes, but you're doing that chasing big giant bosses.
It's true.
Similarly, Warframe's big open world zones give you a mission to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Patrol does also give you missions to do, or it can anyway.
It can, but it's clunky.
It is clunky.
That's bounties.
But like, I ran into this in I've run into this in other games too, where like I realized at one point that I don't want to run an FF14 dungeon more than 3 times. And that is not a large enough number to do anything meaningful in FF14.
Yeah, that's not how they want you to do it.
Because the first time I'm like, this is new and cool. The second time I'm like, I've got some ideas about strategy. The third time, I'm optimizing my strategy. Every time after that, okay.
Yeah.
I want something that satisfies both.
It doesn't help how static 14 dungeons are.
I'm not actually sure I've ever seen anything that doesn't feel fairly static.
WoW Mythic Dungeons got pretty close because they give you like random affixes on the dungeons, but those are also tuned to be very punishing.
Yeah, and
Painful.
honestly, like the problem
And the
that
rewards were kind of crap, honestly.
the problem that I had with Mythic Dungeons was basically there were, a handful of heinous weekly affixes that you never wanted to run, and then there was the good one. And like I think they got rid of some of the worst ones, but also I think that still exists where there's just some that are universally unfun. I don't know. we have talked at length about this.
We went a
this
little off
meandering
topic.
topic.
We're definitely getting through all these topics tonight. What are
Yeah,
you
that's
Absolutely.
1 out of 9.
Clearly.
Okay, so I am voting to move on. Dwarven Realms has officially released now, I believe, right?
Not yet.
It's
So,
like a week away,
speaking
right?
of all of the ARPG-ish things happening this fall and winter, Dwarven Realms, I think their official release will be on the 27th. But it's I played it when we all first picked it up, and it was a very interesting thought exercise.
Yes.
And I put it down, and I came back to it. I guess it's been a few weeks ago now, and it's mostly a game now. There are dungeons. There's a more coherent progression system. There's a little bit more consistency across what the individual levels look like and how you progress through them. It has a map. It's got they've adjusted the crafting system. It's actually much sort of more like last epochs up to a point. And yeah, it's still really fun. The basic gameplay of basically a 3D Vampire Survivors is really fun. But everything around that looks a little prettier and makes a lot more sense now.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I remember the
This game had
graphics
more-
being kind of rough when I last
Yeah,
looked
like
at it.
it felt like someone's tutorial Unreal level.
Yeah, it's still not great, but it's significantly better than it was. And they've been doing the last couple of weeks just ridiculous patching to try to prep for the launch. So every time you turn around, things are changing and upgrading, which is a little chaotic and not for everybody. But it's also kind of fun to be a part of that. And yeah, I'm super looking forward to the actual launch. I'm curious if they're going to calm down a little and keep a sort of stable release for a week or two. But yeah, it's just I think if you are open to the chaos, now is a good time to just hop in and check it out. And if you maybe want to skip the chaos, then by the 27th, theoretically, maybe a little less chaos. But yeah, I've been having a blast up until the last epoch cycle started. This is what I've been doing with all of my free time. Running a bow build with Kraken seeds, so just random tentacles come up out of the ground and kill all of my enemies. This is my jam.
So the thing that ever got confused me about this game a bit is that it was billed to me as a 3D Vampire Survivors, but also it seems like there is more character persistence than that game would imply.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there definitely is. It's a hybrid of like an ARPG and that Vampire Survivors idea. So the combat is very much you walk into a small area and swarms of things spawn all around you. It's just ridiculous mob density. But your character is definitely persistent and levels up, and all those systems make much more sense now too.
ISS Vanguard.
Oh man, I picked this. So okay, I like Star Trek, right? And this is a board game. This is a persistent board game evoking Star Trek, but like a little crunchier, a little bit lower tech. But it's a co-op. It's a co-op. Go and do missions. There's a story. It is sort of this It works sort of episodically. It's rated. I think it's rated almost as highly as Gloomhaven. But yeah, I finally had the opportunity to sit down and play some board games with Kodra and Ash. This game is fun.
It's very fun.
It's like it feels like the right amount of push your luck. It's got cutscenes.
I did not expect cutscenes, yes, but that's a thing. So there's a book that like says read this entry when this thing happens, and in some of them are QR codes.
Neat.
And it'll take you to a YouTube video that's like, a decently animated little sequence that's like, this is what just happened.
It's kind of hilarious.
It's cool.
I think the one cutscene we've had is like the title screen for the ISS Vanguard. It's like, dun dun dun. Now you know what the game is. ISS Vanguard.
Yeah.
This reminds me of those board games back in like the late 90s that
The
came with a
VCR
VHS
ones?
tape. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Dragon Strike.
And the worst part of those was like fast forwarding to the time code.
Uh-huh.
Say, like, I did grow up with things that used an audio tape for this. I never had anything that used a videotape.
It was real popular for a short period of time.
Yep.
And then they did them as DVDs, and they were infinitely better, but also
That would
weren't
work a
any
lot
more
better.
popular.
Yeah.
I was too young for them to have be done as DVDs.
Yeah, because there was Dragon Strike, which was basically like the D&D board game that used a VCR tape, and then there were also there were a bunch of other ones. I had the ones for Clue and Isaac Asimov's Robots.
There was one that was like, Indiana Jones at Home, I remember. That was like a knockoff, treasure hunter kind of thing.
I'm going to go out. I'm going to choose violence and say that the VHS tape that came with the Isaac Asimov's Robots board game is a better Isaac Asimov adaptation than iRobot.
I knew you were going to go there.
It is a honestly fairly good low budget adaptation of Caves of Steel. Like I actually enjoyed it. It's got Lige Bailey and Ardenil Oliva, and yeah.
You don't have to.
I would watch it.
Bar.
Like, you don't really have to have a high budget to do reasonable sci-fi. You just have to be imaginative.
Yeah, no, it was like on a level of effects quality with like overdrawn at the memory bank, something like that.
Yes, Atmosphere or Nightmare. That is the one I'm thinking of. I know Loading Ready Run has played these on stream.
The Clue VCR game is not a better Clue movie than the Clue movie.
No.
The Clue
That
movie's
would be
great.
impossible.
Clue movie is like one of my favorite movies. I am your singing telegram. Blam!
That is the only thing I know about the Clue movie, having never seen it.
This needs to be fixed.
Absolutely.
It's so
It
good.
really does. It's a good movie, actually.
Like it's one of my all-time favorite Tim Curry performances, among other things.
Cloris Leachman is amazing in it.
Flames.
On the side of my face.
That movie had a really great cast all around.
It really did.
Like, some of it won't have aged well, like the whole I'm going home to sleep with my wife.
Yes.
But it is very much an 80s film.
Yes.
Yep.
Astro Bot, I have heard, is amazing.
Astro Bot is amazing.
It's so good.
So when the PlayStation 5 came out, it came packaged with a little game called Astro's Playroom, which
is great.
Which was a lot of fun, very short, basically mostly a demo of all the cool things that the PlayStation 5 controller could do.
Yeah.
And it was, mostly very easy platforming with a little robot character who is the PlayStation 5. I mean, I honestly think he's just the PlayStation mascot at this point. Congratulations, Sony. You finally came up with a good PlayStation mascot.
Yes.
It only took you 30 years. But it's and it was delightful. And you were going through these levels, collecting all of the old PlayStation equipment and seeing little robots reenact bits from various games. And it was fun.
Yeah.
And
it was and it was really cool to be I think that one of the things that Nintendo struggled with is that their controllers have all of this fancy tech packed into them.
Mm-hmm.
But without a good gameplay demo of how you could use all of them, mostly you just use it like a normal controller.
Yeah. And sadly, a lot of the stuff that the controller can do still doesn't seem to really get used by other games.
Did you know there's an LED behind the home button in the Switch controller?
I did.
I did not realize that.
It almost never turns on.
I have never seen it light up in any context involving a game.
It's there. Nobody remembers it, but it's there. But yeah, so Astro's Playroom was a lot of fun. My son really enjoyed Astro's Playroom. I think he's one trophy short of 100%ing that game. And the only reason that he has taken a break from that is because when Astro Bot came out, so basically Astro's Playroom did well enough that the team that made it decided to make a full game, full size, actually, pay money for it game. And it came out last week before, very recently. And so I picked that up. And it is just as fantastic as Astro's Playroom, but full size. And so my son has been obsessed with Pikmin for I don't know how long. As of now, friendship with Captain Olimar is ended. Astro is my new best friend.
Yeah.
No, it is so charming. And if Astro Bot had been conceived in the 90s,
mm-hmm.
we would have a wildly different games landscape. Because this fundamentally, Astro Bot it's Mario 64.
Yeah, that's the comparison that I keep hearing people talk about, that this is for the PlayStation 5 what Mario 64 was for the Nintendo 64.
It really is.
Yeah.
But crammed 120% full of PlayStation games references.
Yes. And it is a solid 3D platformer. It's got a lot of personality. It's super charming. The visuals are amazing.
Yeah.
It's
very smooth.
Just
controls are perfect.
Yeah. But most importantly, it is all of those things without being made by Nintendo.
Yeah.
Which I don't think anybody really managed.
I really don't. Oh, and the music. Holy crap, the music. The music in Astro's Playroom was incredibly catchy, and Astro Bot is just even more so.
Yeah. The music is great. The visuals are great. No, this would have fueled just forever console wars if Astro Bot were a contemporary of Mario.
Yeah. This might be my 2024 game of the year. Just it's very, very impressive. My son has nearly finished it at this point. I'm a little over halfway through the game. I mostly only get to play it once he's in bed. But yeah. In Astro Bot, there were levels where Astro got inside of a suit to do various things. In Astro's Playroom, in Astro Bot, you've got various power-ups that are level specific, that most of them are animal themed, but you can get frog boxing gloves that shoot out when you punch, or a chicken backpack that is a rocket pack that just rockets you straight up, or a dog backpack that rockets you forward, and is also like an adorable bulldog. And when you get to the end of the level, he gets a doghouse. It's very cute. But yeah, like just it's just remarkable how good every individual element of this game is. Like they didn't miss anything. So yeah, highly recommend.
I just hope they don't get a patent infringement from Nintendo.
Oh no!
Like the only thing about Astro Bot is that it is, like Thalen mentioned, it is packed full of Sony nostalgia.
Yeah,
and
like
that is
half the point.
Yeah, and I waffle back and forth on how I necessarily feel about that.
I kind of wish it was standing on its own. Like Mario is standing very much on its own. It's its own thing.
I mean, even modern Mario games tend to be filled with references to previous Mario games.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
Fair.
The thing about this is like it's to a level from what I've seen that I don't know that there's any fan that's going to understand the entire scope of all these references.
There's not. Like I recognize most of them, but there are some that I'm like, I'm not sure what game that character is from. And of course, my son is 6. Like he doesn't know most of these games. He does. I have after he found the Parappa the Rappa bot, because of course there's one. There's also an Jammer Lammy bot. I showed him the Master Onion levels from both Parappa the Rappa and Jammer Lammy, and for like the rest of the evening, he was singing "Kick Punch." It's all in the mind. So
Wonderful.
Well worth it then. But like, it does kind of make you realize how much property Sony has kind of squandered over the years.
It's true. I mean, and some of this stuff is like third-party stuff that, has just mostly been on Sony platforms. Like, Ken and Rue, for instance, are 2 of the bots that show up. Like, those aren't Sony specific, but
Who?
But still.
Who?
Ken and Rue from Street Fighter.
Street Fighter, got it.
Yeah. Like most of the characters are like Sony specific, Kratos and
Sure.
Drake from Uncharted, Nathan Drake, and
I'm sure they got everybody they got for PlayStation All-Stars, right?
oh yeah,
Right?
Ico, Shadow of the Colossus,
almost certainly, yeah.
Well,
Crash
and a lot of
Bandicoot,
these,
Bubsy, stuff like
a
that.
lot of these characters.
Well, they probably got
also-
more because there's a bunch of notable missing names that were in the fighting game, not in the fighting game.
Well, a lot of these characters also showed up as cameos in Little Big Planet series.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and Little Big Planet had a lot of the same thing going, where I was like, it feels a little corporate IP.
Right. Well, and to be
I
fair,
didn't think
probably
that about the first Little Big Planet.
Not the first one.
honestly, like the best Little Big Planet game is the standalone platformer that came out when the PS5 launched. That was
Sackboy's
mostly-
Big Adventure.
Yeah, Sackboy's Big Adventure, which was the least corporate marketing opportunity of the games.
So, one was definitely standing on its own. It was kind of cool. Two, I thought was had a bit more references, but they beefed up the level creation engine enough that it was my favorite by far.
Yes.
3 was a lost cause.
Yep.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, and like the thing for me, like Astro Bot is so good. I worry about Astro Bot 2.
Yeah,
that's where I'm at with it. Like it's so good, but it's super, and it's so polished. It's like, where do you go from here?
Mhm.
That's like, I can see the corporate boardroom that's like, we're making Astro Bot 2, here are all of the things it must have, and it drowns out being a good game first.
Yeah. Like my hope is that Team Asobi has enough clout to basically be allowed to do their thing, and and produce another good game when that time comes.
Yeah, I mean,
But-
the alternate take is that Astro Bot 2 is just bonkers. Like, they get the freedom to go absolutely nuts because they've proven that they can do something great.
Mm-hmm.
So they get, like, massive amounts of creative license. And I think
That would be
that
cool.
game is incredible.
Well,
I just hope they get
that's
to do it.
honestly kind of part of what I've heard surrounding this game is that they were largely given complete freedom because it was seen as a side project, not a main game, because its budget was pretty small and the team was relatively tight. And
Yeah,
I
but
think
Sony is trying to figure out what their main games even are right now.
Yeah. Well, and it's worth noting that Team Asobi is a team made up from the old members of Japan Studio.
right.
That makes sense.
So that's and those people have made incredible games.
Also incredibly weird games, but incredible games.
Yeah, like Shadow of the Colossus, Gravity Rush.
The thing that would concern me is does Sony corporate understand what made this a good game?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what matters. If they understand, then yeah.
There's a
maybe it can
lesson
happen
that needs
again.
to be learned between the duality of them shutting down. God, what was I'm drawing a blank on the name of the game. It's already left my mind. That
Concord?
flopped massively to get delisted from
Concord?
Concord. Yep.
Yeah, Concord.
Why was Concord a failure, and why was Astro Bot such a rousing success? Now, learn from that lesson.
But I think part of why Astro Bot was a rousing success is because Astro's Playroom was free to everybody who got a PlayStation 5 got Astro's Playroom free.
Right.
So
we already
why
fell in
not
love with
play
the
it?
character.
And then it turns out it's great. So okay, yes, when they make another game that is a sequel to that, I'll give it a shot. And it turns out, yes, it's also amazing. It's because otherwise you would look at it and be like, oh, this is just like a Sony cash grab that they're cramming all the nostalgia they can into this game, and there's not going to actually be anything there. Turns out the nostalgia is just the added spice.
Yeah.
It's not the point of the game.
If I had not played Astro's Playroom, I wouldn't have looked twice at this.
Yeah. No, never.
Hey, it turns out there is value in packing a game in with your console release.
Who could have guessed?
Nintendo figured this out literally 35 years ago. I'm sorry. I don't know what year it is. 39 years ago.
Oh.
I'm as old as Mario and I'm turning 40.
Yep.
Share a birthday with the NES.
Look. The curse of being a Gen Xer like myself is that the 90s always feel like they were 10 years ago.
That is
Truth.
Yeah.
There are kids in the workforce who were born after 9/11.
Yup.
Yep.
Yeah, there's currently a babysitter watching my kid who could be my child.
Yep.
So Ash, tell us about the Gundam game that is also probably a good one.
I put this on the list as Gundam Game 4 asterisk because this is the 5th Gundam Breaker game, but it is called Gundam Breaker 4. There's a reason they skipped the number. Anyhow, Gundam Breaker is at this point, fairly long-running series about building tiny plastic Gundam models and battling them against other tiny plastic Gundam models. If you are unfamiliar with the Gundam build sub-series, it's definitely loosely based on that.
Right.
The latest one goes full MMO with it, much like that recent anime, actually. So you have a Gundam avatar, and all of this stuff is in the virtual world rather than controlling plastic models via magic.
Aha.
Which was a thing in previous Gundam Breaker games and has been a thing in various Gundam anime. But this one is actually good.
Oh, thank goodness.
At least I think it's good. I am fairly early into it because, shock and surprise, the customization of your gunplug comes in almost immediately, and I've been sucked into it.
This is Gundam Breaker 4.
Yes.
Okay, it's so hard for me to keep up with Gundam game titles.
So there was a period around 2017, 2018 where they were trying to make localized Gundam game titles, and we got 2 terrible Gundam games during that time period. In New Gundam Breaker and Gundam Versus, the one that's just called Gundam Versus with no other modifiers, is a bad game. They were made for the North American market. They are both crap. This one, they didn't try to make it into an online PvP 3-on-3 game for no good reason. And so they were able to make the mechanics suit an actual action game. So it's a lot of fun to actually play, unlike New Gundam Breaker was.
Nice.
The mission variety appears to be non-existent. That was a thing in Gundam Breaker 3 as well, honestly. And maybe it'll get a little better, but I'm kind of not holding my breath.
It is so bonkers to me that the types of Gundam games that get made are bonkers to me.
But yeah, you go around, beat up some other people's plastic model. There is a story along the way that means basically nothing. Story is weird. It does just sort of assume the player is male. Apparently the Japanese one had no sort of assumption and they had to pick something, which kind of sucks. But you are represented in game as your Gunpla model anyway, so it's kind of whatever. And the story is definitely not a high point, as it were. I didn't really expect it to be. It just needs to provide an excuse for me to go around a bunch of different places and beat up a bunch of different things.
Yeah.
Which it does.
Does the Gundam control like a fast-moving flying Gundam?
Yeah, it does. It is pretty normal for Gundams in video games to control fairly speedily. Like, they do high-speed boost maneuvers, things like that. It's not like controlling a mech in Armored Core at all. And if you can think Armored Core's mechs can get kind of... No, they can't.
It is halfway... So Armored Core is the halfway point between a Mech Warrior mech and a Gundam mech.
Yes. That's pretty much exactly it.
Yep.
I found combat... And again, I was not playing this game, so I don't know how it is. But when I played one Gundam game, I found it kind of floaty and weightless. Like, mostly I was slashing at an enemy that had a bar going down rather than feel like they were reacting to my attacks, especially with, like, bosses and stuff.
I feel like this one does a bit better job of selling impacts, except for some enemies that have, like, special shield bars, which is kind of annoying. Like, bosses... So you are at least you start anyway, as an HD Gundam, and you definitely get put up against perfect grades as bosses. And so, like, the giant bosses don't always flinch when you hit them. But most normal enemies do. You can combo them, like, all up and down the screen, stuff like that. The impact sounds are very nice. The impact hit animations are sometimes less nice. And it feels like it varies a bit from weapon to weapon. Like, axes feel a lot more weighty than swords do. I also recently got a giant hammer, which I've been rather enjoying. It's the one from the Gundam Gushin from Iron Blooded Orphans. And yeah, like, I'm running into a few problems now in that between chapters 1 and 2, there's a bit of a level spike where they open up a bunch of quest missions, and they expect you to do those at least a little bit. It is possible to continue, and if you do continue, the rewards you get from those missions are commensurate with their difficulty, so will instantly get you up to the level of them. But it does mean the first mission going is a little slow if you do it that way. But yeah, I'm having a fun time. I have played far less into the game than I might otherwise have because I've been spending too much time figuring out where to put missiles on my mech.
Clearly in the shoulders.
Why would you stop there?
Say, wherever they will fit.
The problem with those missiles is they look really cool when they're streaking across the screen, but ultimately they don't really do anything.
So I did recently unlock the Camper Backpack, another one of my absolute favorites. And it has 2 giant rocket launchers on the back. Those actually do something when you fire them.
Do they do something when you fire them in the anime?
I don't know if they get fired in the anime. The Camper is big, like this giant, hulking beast of horror in the anime it's from. It hovers around hunting for the Gundam. I don't know if they ever actually fire the weapons on the back. I don't know, I have to look that up. It is very much one of the horrors of war Gundam anime if you go looking for it, though.
Which one is it?
War in the Pocket. I believe it's an OVA.
But this game is very much WoW Cool Robot, right?
This game is entirely WoW Cool Robot.
You're playing it on console, right?
Yeah, I'm playing it on PS5.
I assume it's also available on PC?
It is also available on PC. I think it might even have crossplay. I'm not sure. Nope, it does not.
Like, I enjoyed, I think it was Gundam Breaker 3?
3 was the last good one. It was possible to import it 3 came out in English in Southeast Asia, like Singapore, places like that.
I got my copy from Play Asia.
So yeah, it's possible to get it from Play Asia that way. We might actually get through. Oh wait, no, never mind.
No, I think we're probably going to get a single more topic done.
I flip-flopped it so that the probably shorter one is first.
Yep. Hades 2. It is still in early access, right?
It is still in early access. I played this game for research purposes. After, being 100% convinced that I was not going to play it until release. And so I'm not here to talk about any of the content, but I am fascinated. If you have a game like Hades, what do you do for the sequel that feels good? Friends, they nailed it. Like, it's not even done, and it's good.
I mean, I'm still refusing to play this game until it releases, for real.
Absolutely.
Same.
I'll play it again just for the soundtrack.
Yeah, like I bought it as soon as it became available. It is sitting in my Steam library, waiting for it to go to be out of early access.
I feel like I want to get more of the story of Hades 1, actually. And I should probably go and work on that.
It's totally worth it.
Very good story.
Yes.
I got to credits 1.
There's a lot still to do.
There's 3 credits?
There's 2.
Sounds right.
2?
There's at least 2, yeah. But also more stuff post second credits. So.
You can continue to do stuff post second credits.
I didn't know if there was a third credits after the second credits. I couldn't remember if there was a third credits after the post second credits stuff.
No, after second credits, everything you're doing is for bragging rights and to see more of the game if you wish.
So Hades 2, I like the character better, which I really liked Zagreus. Malinois is amazing. The conceit is fascinating. And so one of the things that for me Supergiant is incredibly good at is their music, their soundtrack.
Yeah.
And as far as Supergiant games go, I thought that Hades 1 was fine. Like, I wasn't disappointed in the music in it, but it didn't blow me away.
I thought it was their worst soundtrack so far.
Yes.
But it was an excellent soundtrack.
Which is, yeah.
Yep.
Well, the key difference is the soundtrack in Hades isn't a character in the game in the way that the soundtrack in the other games are.
Yes.
I guess that's fair, yeah.
There's one moment where it is, which is when you're hanging out with Euripides.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that song's great, but, like, it's not on the Transistor or Pyre or Bastion levels.
I don't quite think that Hades 2's soundtrack hits Transistor Bastion Pyre levels, but it's way up there. Like, it is dramatically and noticeably better than Hades 1. And the way the game is structured is also, it is hard at first, but it's hard because in Hades 1, you do not have very many tools at the start of any run.
Correct.
You have whatever your weapon does, and you have some bullshit. Because those abilities are not good until you get something that makes them good. That is not Malinois's problem. It took me several runs to realize exactly how powerful you are at the start of a run. I think your power delta is a little bit less than in Hades 1. There were absolutely some points where I would hit a build and just be like, I am unstoppable now. And that doesn't happen as much in Hades 2, but it also means that more of the options you have as you go are functional. And I think that is an accomplishment. So I'm not disappointed when Zeus shows up, for example. Basically everybody is worthwhile. But I played it to the point. I meant to play it just enough so I could like take a bunch of notes on its systems. And I wound up playing it to the point where it said, hey, so you've reached the end of early access. We don't have anything more for you, but we'll let you know when you do because it was that compelling. I am a huge fan. It's really, really good. It has some unbelievably deep cuts into Greek mythology. Like starting with you probably know exactly one of the first 10 characters you meet.
Wow.
You could I think this was mostly luck, but I'm pretty sure you can go through I went through like the majority of my first run, which admittedly wasn't very long because I died very quickly, without running into a god that I recognized because I got other things.
So it is a pull bullfinches off the shelf and look these people up type game.
Yeah, but it also redesigned. They also redesigned every main pantheon god and goddess and added a few that weren't in the first game, and they're so good. They're amazing. I also continue to think that their approach to Aphrodite is inspired in both cases. For both Zagreus and Malinoe, the interaction with Aphrodite are very clever and thoughtful. I really like it. Like, not that this is going to be a huge surprise, but like whenever this is actually released, it just slam dunks its way into my game of the year. It might make the list twice. And there is what feels like a Hades amount of content now, but it's structured in a way that it doesn't, you don't have to like pour quite as much time into it. It is an effort for me to convey this without any spoilers, but there is a slightly different structure that makes a huge difference in how you play it, and I think it's great. But yeah, Hades 2, it's so good I had to say something about it. Like, if you had any misgivings about whether or not they could follow up Hades, don't, because it's great. I have also had one of the tracks from that game stuck in my head because they returned to the Transistor classics, and one of the boss fights has not just one, but I think 3 songs that play, and they're both hilarious and very good. I definitely died listening to the lyrics at least once.
Nice.
Making this the second, I think only the second time that a musical track in a video game has caused me to lose focus and die. The other being A Long Fall, where I was laughing too hard to heal my party.
I was going to say, the other one was Titania, wasn't it?
I didn't.
Or no, I'm sorry, A Long Fall, yeah.
No, it was definitely Long Fall.
So, yeah.
I may or may not have zoned out listening to the Honeybee Lovelies theme.
That one is real good.
I guess Snowcloak put me to sleep more than once.
Yeah.
but
Yeah,
it's
for
causing me to
sure.
actually
That's
lose.
I don't think it ever caused me to actually lose.
Exactly.
Snowcloak is actually weirdly harder now than it used to be. Like the final boss, I think. They redid a lot of those dungeons.
Yes, they did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they fixed them. Well, no, I shouldn't say fixed them. They changed them up for like the duty stuff, but it's been a while since I was in that one, even since they changed it up. So I don't remember
The tell for the final boss is a little bit different than it used to be, and I went into it assuming the tell was the same.
Oh no.
But I miss throwing snowballs.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
sad.
That was an unfortunate change.
This is probably the stopping point because I'm looking at some of the other stuff that I went ahead and preemptively moved over. I don't know that any of those are super short.
I think we've gone long enough for this one, I think.
Yeah. Anyway, once again, apologies for not having a show for 2 weeks. But we're back. I'm
Yay,
still
we're
alive.
back.
Yay!
Hopefully you enjoyed the show, and we will see you again next week. Good night.
Good night.
Good
Good
night.
night.
Good night.
See you.